build bridges to connect. It's in our nature as people to gather, trade, travel, to be communal. But sometimes an obstacle presents itself that prevents us from doing what makes us human. The Mississippi River. Majestic, beautiful, a connecting channel while simultaneously a barrier. What do we do about such a mighty challenge that keeps us from each other? We overcome, and this is just that kind of tale. The setting for this story is the breathtaking Mississippi River Valley, nestled within the Grand Bluffs of the Driftless area.
The reason it's unique is due to Mother Nature, the way the landscape was formed here, going back to the demise of the glaciers. When those ice sheets melted, water came down the gorge and it just carved out this huge chasm in the bedrock. On top of that, we had lush soil that blew in from the west, and that spawned vegetation.
Southwest Wisconsin is resource rich. It's an area where the tribes came. It's where they congregated as families, hunting, fishing. Obviously, they needed water to do all the things that they needed to do.
The water itself holds a connection for us as a people throughout America. Seeing the waterways more as highways to our people and being able to connect. Pre-contact, we were still trading things that we were learning, things that we did. Trade didn't just come with the Europeans.
In Lansing, lead mining was sort of the early draw for early settlement. But as it turned out, there wasn't a whole lot of lead in close proximity. But it did quickly become sort of a local hub of transportation because of its river connection. The coming and going of goods and people. It was a shipping hub for farmers and their crops. That included fishing and the harvesting of mussels, and from the shells of the mussels, button manufacturing. And it became a local center of commerce that way.
But then in the 1890s, you had entrepreneur folks, business people that wanted this interchange of customer traffic and industry, and then you got to the Mississippi. Oh, there's a big barrier here. How the heck do we get across this? There were folks from the Lansing area here that wanted a bridge.
The earliest ideas for a bridge began in the late 1890s. There were two local leaders by the names of Bakewell and Conway, and they had the idea. They made some actions. The corporation was formed. They actually had congressional approval, but they didn't really have the funding or much of a plan to enact the construction of a bridge. It was really about another decade when the corporation began raising money by virtue of selling stock. Their hope was that with these funds, they could build a bridge and collect tolls, and then distribute money back to the stockholders. And so they brought in men by the name of O'Connor and Schaefer from the Twin Cities who were professionals at doing this, and they were to sell enough stock to eventually start construction of the bridge.
The Iowa-Wisconsin Bridge in Lansing was officially underway with the fascinating cantilever truss design.
Not a structural engineer, but cantilever truss, if you look at the pictures, they tell the story themselves. Built in Wisconsin and Iowa side first, the pillars and the ends, and then the middle was put into place with the ends.
The erection of the truss, when the contractor puts together all of those individual steel parts, they have to get those to fit within 1/8 of an inch, which seems incredible. But to think back in the early 30s, using the cranes and equipment that they had at the time to try to get those pieces to fit together just right is really incredible.
When that final day came to lifted into place. Dad was absolutely spellbound. He couldn't believe that it went into place. He always said, "I think I learned that there were people smarter than me." It was amazing that people could figure out how to do what they did.
Never. The word always attached to the Black Hawk Bridge as its funding, design, and construction overcame an array of challenges, while the U.S. economy wrestled with the Great Depression. But then, in 1931, never arrived on May 23rd.
It's open to traffic in 1931. A lot of dignitaries were present. It's a pretty festive type of experience. We just don't see that with even other iconic bridges from the region.
I think that bridge really symbolizes how not just our community, but several communities around us came together to make something really great. I think it was a big dream that at the time seemed kind of impossible.
Really, from the word go, when the bridge was opened in 31, it had that Black Hawk Bridge name attached to it. When you think about Black Hawk and the Sac and Fox history in and around the area, the Battle of Bad Axe on the Wisconsin side.
It's a big history thing here. It keeps the roots of what was here before us alive.
I firmly believe that in our DNA, we remember inside of us that we were once here. And when I come to these areas, I very much feel at home, connecting something that I can't really explain to you on paper or anything. It's just something that comes from my heart. I can now come back here, reconnect for my people back home for future generations.
Connecting people for generations was one of the primary objectives for the now open Black Hawk Bridge. The other goal was achieved with the installation of the fueling station and toll booth, collecting 50 cents for every passing automobile that utilized its convenience. While this formula worked for the first few years, the truth that was about to surface came at a much steeper cost.
This idea of crossing the river with a bridge was a very, very popular idea. Much of the popularity was related to the fact that this was intended to be a money-making investment. Most of the movers and shakers on this bridge were not from Lansing. There's a lot of out-of-town goings-ons here, which I think a lot of people in this town, including my parents and my grandparents, probably didn't know anything about.
O'Connor and Schaefer were compensated for their work in selling stock for the bridge company. Part of that compensation was stock ownership in the company. And they were eventually appointed to the leadership committee, making financial and operational decisions. And they awarded themselves further stock in the company. Things got even more interesting as they began to accumulate large percentages of the stock shares. And they were then lending money to the bridge company. And as they were lending money to the bridge company that they may have known couldn't be repaid, they sued the bridge company for foreclosure and complete ownership of the structure and the corporation. And that led to a decade-plus long series of court cases and litigation. And all of this led to significant trouble in 1945 with an ice flow that damaged some of the slough bridges that led up to the bridge from the Wisconsin side. Because of those financial troubles, the bridge company could not repair those damaged bridges, and so they were forced to close the Lansing Bridge.
My dad was a school bus driver, and so he drove the kids from Wisconsin. When ice took out the slough bridge, that threw everything into chaos, ended my dad's job as a school bus driver. I know the feeling was, oh, it's not going to take too long, we'll get this up and running. Well, that didn't happen.
The years that it sat idle, from 45 to 57, that's pretty significant, really significant. We all depend on each other. Geographically, we're isolated. That bridge is gone, even for 12 years. Your existence is cut off.
Only the states could bring this bridge back. The two state governments decided this crossing between Wisconsin and Iowa was important.
In the 1955, which is around the same time that the federal government and also states were starting to get really involved in developing interstate systems and kind of making our transportation around the country more fluid. That's when both Wisconsin and Iowa stepped in to purchase this bridge and make the necessary repairs.
There's really quite a few changes that are made to the bridge. It gets a new deck. Historically, it had an asphalt-covered timber plank deck. That's when the steel grates come in. There's quite a bit of strengthening added to the bridge, just from an engineering standpoint. The toll booth on the Iowa side goes away. Really, at that point, it starts to look and feel like part of the state transportation systems that it connects on either side. Obviously, communities celebrate again, kind of similar to the 1931 event.
I was in junior high, and being the local band, we marched in the parade. In fact, we were the star the star band.
We had just gotten new wool uniforms. The parade units stretched all the way across that 3-mile dike and beyond. It was just a magical day.
I can remember the very first time we went across that bridge after it reopened. That was just absolutely music to my ears, honest to God. The impact of that bridge, the depth, the charm, how close it is to the heart and soul of the people that live in this town. I just fell in love with it.
It's a fascinating bridge. I was trying to describe it to somebody the other day, and I called it a monster erector set. You take the kid version and you blow it up tremendously. It's a piece of art.
A lot of people, I would say in the last 20 to 30 years, have picked up on the design of the bridge being something to be proud of. The way it integrates itself into the community.
Mugs you can buy in the stores, calendars, shirts, pictures for sale in the frame shop. Lots and lots of pictures of the bridge. You see it on almost everything we do. And it has become a real icon for the town. It's just a part of what Lansing is. My brother, who lives in Bella Vista, Arkansas, but grew up here, it was one of the gifts that I gave him that he liked the best was the picture with the bridge. This is home.
A massive structure, the Black Hawk Bridge leaves an equally massive impression on all of those who behold it or drive over it. An experience unlike any other.
I see a lot of out-of-town people, they stop in my store. Most of them are absolutely thrilled with the bridge, but there are a handful of people who are absolutely terrified to come across that. Several people have said that, they let their spouse drive across, and they close their eyes the whole way, or they'll hold their breath.
It's kind of a scary bridge if you're not familiar with it. It's very narrow. It's got the grates that you can kind of see through if you're on a motorcycle. I remember going across that bridge when I was a kid. When you go on the ramps and you have that little bump, as a kid, that's kind of cool.
Speed up and you drop and you get a good laugh. Or coming back, you speed up and then you drop. I always thought we should have taken a picture of the kids sitting in the back seat.
Everyone raise your hand. The ball
I think the people that are first time over it, I think it really bothers them, but I had a very good friend that grew up in town. He got married, moved out in the country, and he said he couldn't sleep for the first few nights because he couldn't hear that hum of that bridge. He always listened for them cars coming across. It is kind of a neat thing to hear.
People would say, how can you live down here? And honest to God, that music just put me to sleep. You get accustomed to it. That sound of that bridge, it always told me that the world was still alive, there's something going on.
They call it the singing bridge. It really is. It is just full of life. And it really is multi-sensory, with lights at night In 2004, the community came together to fund the installation of lights for the bridge.
When they decided to do that in the early 2000s, I was thinking, gosh, the bridge is just fine without it. But once it was lit, my thinking changed 100%. What a beautiful, beautiful addition we did to that bridge. Overwhelming, really, when they lit it up for the first time.
The lights have become a way to symbolize important events for people, whether it's a holiday or remembering a loved one or celebrating an anniversary or a birthday. It's become quite a tradition, and they're on quite often. There's always something to either celebrate or remember.
It will be advertised, the bridge will be lit tonight in memory of so-and-so, or to celebrate the wedding of whomever. When you look at it, when it's a relative or an occasion, the feeling is indescribable. It isn't just me that remembers this person. Now everybody knows. And it's just a perfect idea. It just adds all that more to that bridge.
The sights and sounds of the singing Black Hawk Bridge have made the structure iconic, far beyond the city of Lansing. However, its location on the mighty Mississippi River has caused some issues over the years.
That's one of the windiest spots on the whole river. When the wind blows out of the north or the northwest, that gets really rough on that corner. A lot of times they'll come down with empty barges and they have trouble getting around that corner. It's a pretty tight bend for them. We got a two-way marine radio and we turn that on, and 9 out of 10 of them holler, I lost steer.
There's a debate as to whether or not that is the sharpest turn on the Mississippi River. I'm thinking it is. I've seen the bridge get hit 3 times, maybe 4 times by barge. When you've got that much tonnage, when he hits there, it's like a cannon going. Every pigeon that's up and underneath that bridge, they take flight. They're off and moving.
We were coming across. Oh, there's a barge down there. All of a sudden, the shake, because we were on the bridge when it was hit. So, you could feel that vibration. And then all of a sudden the barges are all floating because they broke up. What an experience. You don't forget that one.
Due to barge strikes, you see the first protection cell, which we call a dolphin. It's placed upstream. Before long, we have 2 trying to safeguard the bridge, get as much life as possible out of it. But we knew at some point the bridge would hit maintenance condition where we really needed to focus on finding a better solution. When we have a project that looks to improve a crossing, we are required to consider rehabilitation. We looked at a number of rehabilitation alternatives to widen the bridge, to strengthen the bridge, but ultimately, like any bridge, it comes down to the foundation and what's underneath. Rehabilitation was not feasible, largely because of the inadequate structure that exists below the piers.
Getting close to the end of its serviceable life, and the department knows that you want to replace that bridge before it gets to the point of deficiency. So this is our opportunity to build the new bridge while the existing bridge is still serviceable.
The critical nature of what the bridge does, underscored by its history, its iconic look, it really kind of paints the picture for the partnerships. You've got the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, you've got the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, you've got the U.S. Coast Guard, Iowa DOT, Wisconsin DOT, Wisconsin DNR, Iowa State Historic Preservation Office, Wisconsin State Historic Preservation Office, all the tribes that we've worked with, Crawford County on the Wisconsin side, the community of Lansing. It goes on, getting us to kind of move in one direction to deliver for this community, to deliver for the regional transportation needs. It's remarkable.
Remarkable. The best word to describe the Black Hawk Bridge. A structure so noteworthy that it was deemed eligible for the National Register of Historic Places in 1995. And now, as the world not only says goodbye, but also thank you to the bridge and all it has done over the years, parties from far and wide work together to honor its legacy. We call this collaboration Section 106.
Section 106 is about the mitigation or the keeping of the history for resources that may be adversely impacted by projects. There aren't a lot of projects that have such involved consulting parties as this project had. So this was really nice to see. It seems as though the community was really involved both in the consultation process and with developing the mitigation that was designed for this bridge.
There's an incredible amount of passion in the city of Lansing for this bridge. It's a core component of their identity. Trying to get them as involved as possible on being a part of that construction of the new bridge. The first public meeting for the project, they rented a space that had a pretty good capacity, and they had something around 300 people show up, and they were spilling out onto the street. That just doesn't happen for most DOT projects.
The camaraderie, the welcoming, it's kind of like, hey, I'm helping to build this bridge. Or I know how it's going to be built, so I feel a little part of this. We're all part of it. It's talking and it's sharing and it's helped to let go of that stress and bring us together and accept things.
They would show different designs of bridges that could be used to replace this bridge. And it was all the new style of bridge, nothing at all that would even come close to resembling Black Hawk. Finally, I think it was the second to the last meeting that we had over here at the high school. Lo and behold, here is a picture of a bridge that was very, very close to the image of the Black Hawk Bridge. Once they put that picture up, people kind of relaxed a little bit. They kind of drew back because, well, maybe this will be Black Hawk too.
We have a very unique opportunity to construct a new steel truss bridge due to the historical significance of the Black Hawk Bridge. They are very rare across the country in the modern day. A lot of consideration went into the looks of the steel truss. We're matching the piers to the existing bridge, and so really what I think we'll see is just a much larger version of the bridge that's out there today. A more accessible intersection on the Iowa side, a wider, safer deck. We're going to put stainless steel bars in the bridge deck. We're going to put this special 3-part coating on all of the steel members to protect them. We fully expect to see a bridge that is durable and provides that high level of service for 100 years. It's a unique opportunity to not only improve transportation for roadway users, but for the waterway users as well. We're taking that channel and making it wider for water vessels to pass underneath the bridge. Should be much easier to get through.
Kudos to the DOT for paying attention to what the people here wanted, to give us back our bridge, in a sense.
This bridge comes about at a very opportune time. It's going to be so much more of a modernistic way to get across this 3-mile wide river. It'll be beautiful, and it's safe. Sets us up for the next 100 years.
This new bridge is going to outlive me. The same way that the existing bridge outlived the people who worked to bring it to fruition and saw it through construction in 1931.
The Black Hawk Bridge, where it's sat, the scenery around it, that can't be rivaled. It can't. We're just lucky that we are where we are, that the people who settled here originally picked this spot, set it all in motion.
The things around us, the built environment, shape us in one way or another, whether we recognize it or not. This bridge is one of those. It's part of your current, your foreground, your background, and it provides an anchor. And you know that people have been here for a while, and you can feel that history and the significance and the fact that there were people willing to put that time, energy, and money into it, that meant something to them and can mean something to you too.
We're stewards of what we have in front of us. The values that we bring to work every day, respect, valuing people, safety, all of those live on through us, through this bridge, for folks that we will never meet. And it's been a lot of fun to capture some of that history and connect with the people who call this area, this town, this bridge, home.
When we were kids, my dad said, well, who'll see the bridge first as you come down Highway 26? It was a contest. Who could spot the top of the bridge quickest? And it was, I see the bridge, I see the bridge. That was coming home.
They're tearing down the Black Hawk Bridge, a place I've loved since I was a kid. They filled me up with hometown pride. Across the Mississippi River, deep and wide, she's standing tall while holding up all of the trailers, the cars and trucks. She's still strong, she's grown old, and now some say she's gotta go. Do you remember just what you did there in the shade of the Black Hawk Bridge? You'll hear the sound of silence, you won't hear the singing